The world tilted the moment Evelyn Harper said the words aloud. "I'm gay." They slipped from her lips like a confession and a rebellion, shattering the silence of her parents' pristine Connecticut dining room. At 28 she'd spent years hiding, but now, under the weight of her truth, the chandelier above seemed to flicker, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Her mother's fork clattered against the plate. Her father's face hardened, his jaw a rigid line. But it was her identical twin sister, Elise, sitting across the table, who broke Evelyn's heart. Elise's eyes, so like her own emerald green, flecked with gold, widened in shock, then narrowed with something sharper. Disapproval. Betrayal. Evelyn had always shared everything with Elise, from their childhood secrets to their mirrored reflections, but this truth was hers alone, and it carved a chasm between them. Evelyn's mind flashed to Clara Monroe, the woman who'd changed everything. Clara, with her fearless laugh and brown eyes that saw straight through Evelyn's carefully built walls. They'd met 6 months ago at a Boston art gallery, where Clara's bold painting swirls of color that screamed defiance had drawn Evelyn in like a moth to flame. Their connection was instant, electric, a secret Evelyn guarded fiercely until tonight. She'd come out for Clara, for herself, for the hope of a life unhidden. But now, as her family's silence grew louder, she wondered if love was worth this cost. Evelyn had always been the quieter twin, the one who smoothed over Elise's sharp edges. Growing up in their affluent coastal town, they were the Harper twins, indistinguishable to strangers, inseparable to each other. Elise was the firecracker, quick-witted and charming, always the center of attention. Evelyn was the dreamer, sketching in notebooks, her heart a private galaxy of unspoken desires. Their parents, Margaret and Richard, were pillars of old-money New England society, their lives governed by tradition and expectation. The twins were their pride, destined for perfect marriages, perfect lives. But Evelyn had never wanted perfection. She wanted truth. And Clara was her truth. Their first kiss, stolen in the shadows of a rainy Boston alley, had felt like waking up. Clara, a painter with a past as colorful as her canvases, had grown up in foster homes, fighting for every scrap of freedom. She was everything Evelyn wasn't, unapologetic, unafraid. "You don't have to hide, Ev," Clara had whispered that night, her lips brushing Evelyn's ear. "Not with me." For months they built a world together. Late-night talks in Clara's cramped apartment, where Evelyn learned to laugh louder. Quiet mornings at the beach, where Clara traced constellations in Evelyn's freckles. But Evelyn kept Clara a secret from her family, terrified of their judgment. Elise especially would never understand. Elise, who dated men like they were trophies, who thrived on their parents' approval, would see Evelyn's love as a betrayal of their shared identity. The night of the dinner, Evelyn had planned to tell Elise first, privately. But the words had spilled out unbidden, triggered by her mother's casual question. "When are you going to settle down, Evelyn?" The lie she'd lived for years choked her, and the truth poured out instead. Now, as her family stared, Evelyn felt the weight of her choice. She'd chosen Clara, chosen herself, but at what cost? The next morning, Evelyn drove to Clara's apartment, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. Boston streets blurred past, the city alive with autumn's golden haze. Clara was waiting on the stoop, her leather jacket slung over one shoulder, her smile a beacon. "You did it," Clara said, pulling Evelyn into her arms. "You're free." But Evelyn didn't feel free. She felt raw, exposed, like a wound left open to the wind. "Elise hates me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "She didn't say a word after I told them. Just left the room." Clara cupped Evelyn's face, her thumbs brushing away tears. "She's your twin, Ev. She'll come around. Give her time." But time only widened the gap. Elise stopped answering Evelyn's texts, her calls going straight to voicemail. At a family brunch a week later, Elise was all smiles for their parents but cold to Evelyn, her eyes avoiding contact. Margaret and Richard, meanwhile, acted as if Evelyn's coming out never happened, their conversation studiously neutral. "We just want you to be happy," her mother said, but the word happy sounded like a warning. Evelyn clung to Clara, her anchor in the storm. They spent evenings at art shows where Clara's paintings were gaining attention, her bold strokes catching the eye of gallery owners. Evelyn, who worked as a graphic designer, started sketching again, inspired by Clara's fearlessness. They dreamed of a future together, maybe a loft in Boston, maybe a trip to Paris. But the shadow of Elise's silence loomed over Evelyn, a reminder of the family she was losing. One night, as they lay in Clara's bed, Evelyn traced the tattoo on Clara's wrist, a crescent moon. "What if I've lost her for good?" she asked, her voice small. Clara propped herself on one elbow, her dark hair falling into her eyes. "You haven't lost her. She's just scared. People lash out when they don't understand. But you're her sister. That doesn't break so easily." Evelyn wanted to believe her, but deep down she feared Clara was wrong. 3 months later, the world Evelyn had built with Clara began to crack. It started with a phone call from her mother, her voice clipped and urgent. "Elise is engaged," Margaret said. "We're having a dinner to celebrate. You should come." Evelyn's stomach twisted. Engaged? Elise hadn't mentioned a boyfriend, let alone a fiancé. The distance between them had grown, but this felt like a betrayal. Still, Evelyn agreed to attend, hoping it might be a chance to mend things. She didn't tell Clara about the dinner. She wasn't ready to bring her into the Harper family's orbit. Not yet. The dinner was at a country club, all crystal glasses and starched tablecloths. Elise was radiant, her green eyes sparkling as she showed off a diamond ring. Her fiancé, a handsome lawyer named Daniel, was charming, the kind of man their parents adored. But Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Elise barely looked at her, her laughter too bright, too forced. After dessert, Evelyn pulled Elise aside in the hallway. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I'm your sister." Elise's smile vanished. "You've been busy with your choices," she said, the word dripping with disdain. "I didn't think you'd care." "Choices?" Evelyn's chest tightened. "You mean Clara? You mean me being honest about who I am?" Elise's eyes flashed. "You changed everything, Evelyn. You made it about you." "I'm just trying to live my life." The words cut deeper than Evelyn expected. She left the dinner early, tears stinging her eyes. When she told Clara what happened, Clara's face hardened. "She's pushing you away because she's jealous," Clara said. "She's used to being the one who shines. Now you're living your truth, and she can't handle it." Evelyn wanted to argue, to defend Elise, but the truth of Clara's words settled in her bones. Elise had always been the star, the one who thrived on attention. Evelyn's coming out had shifted the spotlight, and Elise couldn't forgive her for it. As winter settled over Boston, Evelyn threw herself into her relationship with Clara, determined to build a life beyond her family's reach. But the cracks were spreading, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming, something that would test her love, her courage, and the bond she'd once thought unbreakable. Spring arrived in Boston, painting the city with cherry blossoms and hope, but Evelyn's heart felt heavy. Her relationship with Clara was a lifeline, yet the rift with Elise gnawed at her like a persistent ache. She missed her twin, the late-night talks, the shared glances that needed no words. Now every unanswered text felt like a door slamming shut. Clara, ever the optimist, tried to pull Evelyn out of her gloom. "Let's get out of the city," she said one morning, her brown eyes bright with mischief. They drove to Cape Cod, where the sea air was sharp and the dunes stretched endlessly. Clara ran barefoot through the sand, her laughter infectious, and for a moment, Evelyn forgot her pain. They built a sandcastle, their fingers brushing as they sculpted towers, and when Clara kissed her under the midday sun, Evelyn felt whole. But the escape was temporary. Back in Boston, Evelyn's inbox pinged with an invitation to Elise's engagement party. Her stomach churned as she read the details. A lavish event at their parents' estate, with Clara explicitly not invited. "It's family only," the note read, but Evelyn knew it was a deliberate slight. She debated skipping it, but Clara urged her to go. "Show them you're not ashamed," Clara said, her voice fierce. "Show them you're still you." The party was a spectacle of well-string lights twinkling over manicured gardens, champagne flowing like water. Evelyn wore a tailored blazer, her chestnut hair pulled back, determined to hold her head high. Elise, in a shimmering gown, looked every inch the bride-to-be, but her smile didn't reach her eyes when she saw Evelyn. Daniel, her fiancé, was polite but distant, his charm polished to a fault. Evelyn tried to talk to Elise, but her sister flitted from guest to guest, avoiding her. As the night wore on, Evelyn overheard whispers, guests murmuring about her lifestyle, their voices laced with pity or scorn. Her mother pulled her aside, her face a mask of concern. "Evelyn, darling, people are talking. Perhaps you could tone it down? For Elise's sake. Tone it down." Evelyn's voice trembled with anger. "You mean hide who I am?" Margaret sighed. "We're just trying to keep the peace." Evelyn left the party early, her chest Hawkins with rage. When she told Clara what happened, Clara's jaw tightened. "They don't deserve you," she said, pulling Evelyn close. But the words echoed in Evelyn's mind. Tone it down. She'd spent years doing just that, and the cost was still unfolding. The world tilted again when Evelyn saw Clara at Elise's wedding, standing beside her twin sister not as a guest, but as the bride. The realization hit like a thunderbolt, splitting Evelyn's heart in two. Clara, her Clara, was marrying Elise. The church, adorned with white roses and candlelight, blurred as Evelyn's knees buckled under the weight of betrayal. She'd known something was wrong for weeks. Clara had grown distant, her texts sporadic, her excuses flimsy. "Work's crazy," she'd said, her brown eyes avoiding Evelyn's. But nothing prepared Evelyn for Thea's wedding invitation that listed Clara Monroe as Elise's fiancée. Evelyn had stood frozen in her bridesmaid's dress, the pale blue fabric clinging to her like a lie, as she watched her ex-girlfriend vow forever to her identical twin. The ceremony was a haze. Elise, radiant in white, mirrored Evelyn's face but not her heart. Clara, in a tailored suit, looked every bit the woman Evelyn had loved, confident, magnetic, her short black hair catching the light. Their vows were poetic, heartfelt, each word a dagger in Evelyn's chest. She wanted to scream, to run, but she stood still, her role as bridesmaid chaining her to the scene. How had this happened? How had Clara, her anchor, her truth, become her sister's forever? The unraveling began a month after the engagement party. Evelyn had noticed Clara pulling away late nights at the gallery, vague explanations about new projects. She'd thought it was stress, maybe a phase, but the truth was worse. One evening she'd found Clara's sketchbook open on their coffee table, filled with drawings of a woman who looked like Evelyn but wasn't. The poses were intimate, tender sketches of Elise, her smile brighter, her eyes softer than Evelyn had ever seen. The realization was a slow poison. Clara was falling for her twin. Evelyn confronted Clara that night, her voice trembling. "Is it her?" she'd asked, holding up the sketchbook. Clara's face crumpled, her brown eyes filling with tears. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "It just did." "How long?" Evelyn demanded, her heart pounding. 2 months, Clara admitted. "It started as a friendship. She was there when you were fighting with your family. I didn't know how to tell you." The betrayal cut deeper than Elise's rejection. Clara had been Evelyn's safe harbor, the one who'd urged her to live her truth. Now that truth felt like a trap. Evelyn moved out the next day, her belongings stuffed into a suitcase, her sketches left behind. She crashed at a friend's apartment, her nights haunted by memories of Clara's laugh, her touch, her promises. Elise's betrayal was its own wound. She'd known about Clara, known how deeply Evelyn loved her. Yet she'd pursued her, courted her, claimed her. The twins had shared everything, clothes, secrets, dreams, but this was a theft beyond forgiveness. Evelyn stopped speaking to Elise entirely, her texts ignored, her calls blocked. Her parents, ever diplomatic, urged her to support your sister's happiness. The words felt like a slap. At the wedding, Evelyn played her part, smiling for photos, holding Elise's bouquet during the vows. Guests whispered about the Harper twins' drama, their identical faces making the scandal juicier. Evelyn overheard a cousin murmur, "Imagine losing your girlfriend to your own sister." She wanted to scream that it wasn't just a girlfriend, it was her heart, her future. But she stayed silent, her pain invisible beneath her practiced smile. After the ceremony, Clara approached her at the reception, held in a grand ballroom overlooking the Connecticut River. "Ev, can we talk?" Clara asked, her voice soft, pleading. Evelyn's throat tightened. "You're my sister's wife now," she said, her voice cold. "What's left to say?" "I never wanted to hurt you," Clara said, her eyes searching Evelyn's. "I love her. I didn't plan this." "You didn't stop it either," Evelyn shot back, turning away before tears betrayed her. She danced with a groomsman, laughed too loudly, drank too much champagne, anything to drown the ache. Days after the wedding, Evelyn threw herself into work, her graphic designs sharper, bolder, channeling her pain into art. She avoided family gatherings, her parents' calls, Elise's tentative texts. Boston felt haunted. Every gallery, every cafe held memories of Clara. She considered leaving the city, starting fresh somewhere her face wouldn't mirror her sister's, but her roots held her fast. One night, she wandered to the beach where she and Clara had built their sandcastle. The waves crashed, relentless, erasing footprints in the sand. Evelyn sat on a dune, sketching the horizon, her pencil tracing the lines of a life she'd lost. A stranger approached, a woman with kind eyes and a camera. "Mind if I shoot you?" the woman asked. "You look like a story." Evelyn laughed, bitter. "You have no idea." Months passed and Evelyn rebuilt herself piece by piece. She joined a local art collective, her work gaining notice for its raw emotion. She made new friends, people who saw her, not Elise's shadow. But the wound lingered, flaring when she saw Elise and Clara's engagement photos online, their smiles a mirror of her pain. Then came a letter, slipped under her apartment door. Clara's handwriting, unmistakable, on pale blue stationery. "I'm sorry," it began. "I'll always love you, but not the way you deserve." It spoke of guilt, of choices made in weakness, of Elise's pull being too strong. Clara begged for forgiveness, for a chance to explain. Evelyn read it once, then burned it in her sink, the flames consuming words she couldn't bear. She didn't respond. Instead, she painted a canvas of two women, one in shadow, one in light, their hands just out of reach. The piece sold at a gallery show, the buyer calling it haunting. Evelyn didn't tell them it was her heart on display. As autumn returned, Evelyn stood at a crossroads. She could stay in Boston, haunted by memories, or leave, chasing a life untainted by betrayal. The choice loomed, heavy as the tides, pulling her toward an unknown shore. Evelyn's brush hovered over the canvas, trembling with the weight of a truth she couldn't paint. She still loved Clara. A year after the wedding, Boston's streets were a minefield of memories. Clara's laugh in every gallery, her touch in every quiet corner. Evelyn, now 29, stood in her studio, her latest piece, a fractured heart in shades of blue, staring back like a mirror to her soul. The betrayal had carved her hollow. Elise, her identical twin, and Clara, her first love, were building a life together, their engagement photos replaced by anniversary posts on social media. Evelyn had blocked them both, but the images slipped through Clara's arm around Elise, their smiles twin-sharp. Each glimpse was a fresh wound, yet Evelyn couldn't stop searching for them, chasing pain like a compulsion. She'd moved to a new apartment in Somerville, a small space filled with her art canvases of longing, loss, and resilience. Her work was gaining traction, critics praising its raw vulnerability. But success didn't fill the void. Nights were the hardest, when silence let memories creep in. Clara's crescent moon tattoo, her whispered promises, the sandcastle they'd built together. Evelyn painted to survive, each stroke a step toward healing her, so she told herself. Her family's silence was its own betrayal. Margaret and Richard, her parents, had embraced Clara as Elise's wife, their pride in the perfect match, a slap to Evelyn's courage. They'd never apologize for their coldness when she came out, never acknowledged the double loss of her sister and her love. Family dinners, now rare, were stiff affairs, with Elise and Clara's absence louder than any conversation. Evelyn attended one last Christmas, hoping for reconciliation, but Elise's guarded smiles and Clara's averted eyes only deepened the rift. She found solace in new connections. The art collective became her refuge, a mix of misfits who saw Evelyn for herself, not as Elise's twin. Among them was Maya, a photographer with warm hazel eyes and a quiet strength. Maya, 30, had a knack for capturing emotion in her shots, her camera finding beauty in Evelyn's guarded expressions. They'd met at the beach, that fleeting encounter when Maya asked to photograph her. Now their paths crossed at gallery openings, their conversations easy, unburdened by history. One evening at a group show in Cambridge, Maya lingered by Evelyn's latest painting, a woman standing alone against a stormy sea. "This is you, isn't it?" Maya asked, her voice soft but piercing. Evelyn nodded, unable to lie. Maya didn't push, just handed her a coffee the next day, her smile an invitation to trust again. Their friendship grew slowly, rooted in shared wounds. Maya had her own scars of family that rejected her queerness, a career built from defiance. They spent evenings at dive bars, trading stories of heartbreak and resilience. Maya's laugh was lighter than Clara's, her touch tentative but kind. Evelyn felt a spark, faint but real, yet fear held her back. Could she risk her heart again? One night, Evelyn found a box in her closet, Clara's old sketchbook, forgotten in the move. The pages held Elise's face, her twin's eyes rendered with a tenderness that still stung. Evelyn almost burned it, but instead tucked it away, a relic of a life she couldn't reclaim. She painted instead a new piece. Two women, their shadows merging then splitting apart. The collective loved it, but Evelyn saw only her own fracture. She started therapy, a quiet woman with glasses who listened more than she spoke. "You're grieving two losses," the therapist said. "Your sister and your love. It's okay to feel both." Evelyn cried then, the first time she'd let herself mourn Clara fully. She'd loved her fiercely, recklessly, and losing her to Elise was a betrayal that cut deeper than rejection. Therapy didn't erase the pain, but it gave it a name: complex grief. Maya became a constant coffee dates, turning into walks along the Charles River, her camera always ready to capture Evelyn's unguarded moments. One evening, as they sat on a bench, the water reflecting city lights, Maya took Evelyn's hand. "You're not her shadow," she said, her voice steady. "You're your own light." The words landed soft like a promise, but Evelyn's heart hesitated, scarred by Clara's departure. She saw Clara and Elise once by chance at a Boston cafe. They didn't notice her, two wrapped in each other, Clara's hand on Elise's, their laughter a shared secret. Evelyn left before they saw her, her chest tight, her sketchbook heavy in her bag. She drew them later from memory, their joy a contrast to her solitude. The piece didn't sell, she couldn't let it go. Winter returned, colder this time. Evelyn's art was featured in a solo show, her name in bold on the gallery wall. The crowd was small but warm, strangers moved by her work's honesty. Maya was there, her camera discreet, her presence steady. After, they walked to a diner, sharing fries in silence. "You're healing," Maya said, her eyes searching Evelyn's. "I can see it in your work." Evelyn wanted to believe her. She was painting more, living more, but Clara's shadow lingered, tangled with Elise's. The question wasn't just whether she could love Aguanit, was whether she could trust her own heart not to break. Evelyn's paintbrush faltered, leaving a streak of crimson across the canvas, a wound in color, bleeding into the shape of her past. 2 years after Clara married Elise, Evelyn stood in her Somerville studio, surrounded by paintings that told her story. Love found, love lost, and a self reclaimed. Boston's pulse beat outside her window, but inside, her heart was learning to beat again. Her art had become her voice. Galleries clamored for her work, calling it visceral and unflinching. Each piece was a fragment of her grief: Clara's crescent moon tattoo, Elise's mirrored eyes, the beach where love once felt eternal. Critics saw beauty. Evelyn saw survival. Her latest show had sold out, strangers buying pieces of her pain, unaware they were holding her heart in their hands. Maya was her constant now, her hazel eyes a quiet harbor. Their friendship had deepened, crossing into something unspoken but electric. Maya, 31, carried her camera like a shield, capturing Evelyn in moments of strength, laughing at a street fair, sketching by the Charles River. She saw Evelyn as herself, not Elise's twin, not Clara's ex. Yet Evelyn held back, her heart scarred, afraid of another betrayal. The past still haunted her. Clara and Elise lived nearby, their life a polished Instagram story: weekend getaways, cozy dinners, a dog named after a painter they both admired. Evelyn avoided their neighborhood, but Boston was small, and glimpses were inevitable. A chance sighting at a farmer's market, Clara's arm around Elise, their rings glinting, sent Evelyn home to paint a storm, waves crashing over two figures, one fading into shadow. Therapy helped, grounding her. Her therapist, Dr. Ellis, spoke of rebuilding trust in yourself. Evelyn was trying. She'd stopped searching for Clara online, stopped torturing herself with their happiness. But the pain lingered, a bruise that flared at odd moments, a song on the radio, a whiff of Clara's perfume in a crowd. Evelyn painted through it, her canvases a map of her healing. Her family remained distant. Margaret and Richard sent cards, birthdays, holidays, but never mentioned Clara or the wedding. Elise texted occasionally, stiff apologies or invitations to dinner, but Evelyn couldn't face them together, couldn't bear their shared joy. She'd reply with pleasantries, keeping the chasm wide. Her parents' acceptance of Clara as Elise's wife felt like a second rejection. Their silence on Evelyn's coming out still a wound. Maya changed the rhythm. She'd photograph Evelyn at work, her lens catching the curve of her jaw, the intensity in her green eyes. "You're more than your pain," Maya told her one night. As they shared wine on Evelyn's balcony, the words landed like a seed, fragile but persistent. Evelyn wanted to believe her, but trust was a slow bloom. One spring evening, Maya invited Evelyn to a photography exhibit, her own work, stark black and white shots of Boston's forgotten corners. Evelyn went, proud but nervous, her heart unsteady in crowds. Maya's photos were raw like her paintings, alleys lit by dawn, faces worn by time. One image stopped Evelyn cold. Herself on the beach, her chestnut hair wild, her eyes distant but alive. "I called it resilience," Maya said, her voice soft. Evelyn's throat tightened. She saw herself through Maya's eyes, not broken but becoming. After the exhibit, they walked to a quiet bar, neon signs casting a warm glow. Maya took Evelyn's hand, her touch steady, and said, "I'm falling for you, Ev, but I'll wait as long as you need." The confession was a spark, bright and terrifying. Evelyn's heart raced. She hadn't felt this since Clara, hadn't dared to. She squeezed Maya's hand, silent but not retreating. Weeks later, Evelyn found a letter from Elise, tucked into her mailbox. It was brief, written in Elise's precise script. "I miss you. I'm sorry I hurt you. Can we talk?" Evelyn stared at the words, her chest tight. She wanted to forgive, to rebuild. But the betrayal, Clara and Elise together, was a wall she couldn't climb. She tucked the letter away, unpainted, unanswered. Her art evolved, brighter now, with splashes of gold and violet hope creeping in. At a gallery event, a buyer asked about a painting of two women, one reaching, one turning away. "What's their story?" the buyer asked. Evelyn smiled, soft but sure. "They're learning to let go," she said. The buyer nodded, moved, and bought it on the spot. Summer came, warm and restless. Evelyn stood at a crossroads, her heart teetering between past and possibility. Maya was there, patient, her camera ready to capture whatever Evelyn became. The question wasn't just whether she could love again, it was whether she could choose herself first. Evelyn's canvas was blank, a white expanse daring her to define herself beyond the shadow of loss. 3 years after Clara married Elise, Evelyn stood in her Somerville studio, 30 now, her chestnut hair longer, her green eyes clearer. Her art had become her voice, each painting a step toward a self no longer defined by betrayal. Her work filled galleries from Boston to New York, critics calling it a journey of reclamation. Canvases of fractured hearts gave way to images of single figures, women standing tall against stormy skies, their faces her own. Clara and Elise still lived in Boston, their life a distant hum, no longer the scream it once was. Evelyn had stopped running from their ghosts, her heart learning to hold its own weight. Maya was her anchor, her hazel eyes a steady light. At 32, Maya's photography had its own following, her lens capturing truths Evelyn was still learning to see. Their bond had grown friendship into love, tentative but true. Evelyn no longer flinched at Maya's touch, her heart opening like a tide easing in. The past was a quieter ache now. Clara and Elise sent occasional cards, anniversaries, holidays, each one a small bridge Evelyn wasn't ready to cross. She'd seen them once at a gallery opening, their hands linked, their laughter soft. Evelyn didn't run. She nodded, polite, and moved on, her heart steadier than before. Her paintings told her story. Loss, yes, but also resilience, growth, a self reclaimed. Therapy had carved a path forward. Dr. Ellis spoke of redefining family, of choosing who deserved her trust. Evelyn was choosing herself, her art, her truth. She'd stopped burning letters, Clara's, Elise filing them instead, relics of a life she'd survived. Her family's silence still stung, but it no longer defined her. Margaret and Richard called less, their voices cautious, but Evelyn didn't need their approval anymore. Maya's presence was a gift, not a demand. They shared mornings now, coffee on Evelyn's balcony, Maya's camera catching her in soft light. "You're whole, Ev," Maya said one dawn, her hand warm in Evelyn's. You always were. The words settled deep, a truth Evelyn was starting to believe. One autumn evening, Evelyn received an email from Elise. No apologies this time, just an invitation. Dinner at their parents' estate, a chance to talk. Evelyn hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She'd spent years guarding her heart, painting her pain, but maybe healing meant facing the wound. She typed a reply, I'll come. Just me. And hit send, her heart pounding but sure. The dinner was small, just the Harper family and Clara. The dining room heavy with memory. Elise looked softer, her green eyes wary but warm. Clara was quieter, her brown eyes searching Evelyn's for forgiveness. They spoke carefully about art, life, the dog they'd named Basquiat. Evelyn didn't flinch, didn't hide. I'm happy, she told them, meaning it. But I needed to be me first. Clara nodded, tears in her eyes. I never meant to break you, she said. Elise took her hand, their rings catching the light. We both love you, Elise added, her voice breaking. Evelyn didn't absolve them, but she listened, her heart open just enough to hear. She drove home to Maya, Boston's lights blurring past. Maya was waiting, her camera on the table, her arms open. How was it? She asked, her voice soft. Hard, Evelyn said, leaning into her. But I'm okay. And she was. Not whole, not yet, but closer, her heart a canvas painted with courage. Her final painting of the year was her boldest. A woman alone, her silhouette bright against a dawn sky, her hand reaching not for another but for herself. It sold for thousands, but Evelyn kept a print above her desk, a reminder. She was enough. The gallery hung it with a single word as its title. Enough. Evelyn stood on the beach where it all began, Maya at her side, the waves whispering of beginnings, not endings. She was 30, her heart scarred but beating, her art a testament to a truth she'd fought for. She was her own light, her own love, her own story. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.